Chapter 9 of The Chocolate Lab. Back in business. Pshaw, Grandpa says, straightening the last pile of boxes on the counter. Running a chocolate shop is child's play. We are children, Hannah says. Grandpa ignores Hannah's very good point. A real day's work is digging ditches or working in a mine. When was the last time you worked in a mine? I asked him. Grandpa smiles a little. Never you mind that, he says. Mom told me you were an accountant before you retired, I said. I said, never you mind. It takes us a few hours, but the store is finally spotless and sparkling again. With Coco double locked in his crate, we're able to work without any trouble. The pots and pans are on their racks, the utensils are in their places. The entire front of the shop doesn't look like a tornado twisted through here anymore. The only difference now is the hole in the wall and the old equipment sitting in the middle of the chocolate lab. Are you sure you cleaned that stuff up? I asked Hannah. Look at it, Hannah says. It's practically gleaming. I wouldn't use the word gleaming, but instead of a bunch of crusty, crumbly pieces of junk we pulled out of a crusty, crumbly secret room, now the chocolate making equipment looks usable. Used, but usable. The heavy bowl and stone stick, which Grandpa told me were called a mortar and pestle, are smooth and ready to grind cocoa beans. The roller and metal block, which I found out from Beatrice Cabot's book is called a chocolate stone, are clean and shiny. Even the skillet, which I already knew the name of, looks good. The bell over the door jingles. It's Mrs. McEnemy. She runs the farmer's market in town. She's holding a loaded to the brim tote bag in one hand and a water bottle filled with goopy green liquid in the other. Rachel, Grandpa says to her, right on time. A promise is a promise, Mrs. McEnany says. She takes a swig from her bottle. Whatever she's drinking doesn't look very good. Grandpa reaches under the counter and pulls out an assortment of boxes. He slides it all to Mrs. McEnany. Just like we agreed, Grandpa says. An even trade. $100 in ingredients for $100 in chocolates. I love trading with local businesses, Mrs. McEnany says, especially when that local business is a chocolate shop. She looks at Hannah and me and winks. Then she takes another sip from her bottle. Mrs. McEnany, Hannah says, what are you drinking? It's a wheatgrass, flaxseed, and pomegranate smoothie, she says. It's packed with vitamins and antioxidants. That sounds awful, Grandpa says. Actually, George Washington drank them during the hot summers in Virginia. They were quite popular back then. Really? Grandpa says. Of course not, Mrs. McEnany says. But if he did, maybe he wouldn't have had all those wooden teeth. She shakes Grandpa's hand. Let me know if you want to work out a trade again. After she leaves, Grandpa brings us the tote bag. What is all that stuff? I ask him. It's all the ingredients you need to make your first batch of colonial-era chocolate. Cocoa beans, sugar, anise, vanilla, nutmeg, cinnamon, even orange rind. I found the recipe in Beatrice Cabot's book. I'll run the store. You guys get to work. He places the folder for the Chocolate Expo on the counter. You have 3 days until the big event. Then you have some ribbons to win. Making colonial chocolate is a lot harder than making regular chocolate. With regular chocolates, you melt already made chocolate in a pot and dip things into it. With colonial chocolate, you have to make everything from scratch. We take triple, quadruple extra care to follow the directions exactly. First, Grandpa helps us roast the cocoa beans in the skillet. Too much and they burn. Not enough and the shells don't crackle off. Then you have to go outside and toss the beans around in the blanket. That gets most of the little pieces of shell to drift away on the breeze. Coco likes that part. He jumps up in the air and nips at the fluttery specks. Once that's done, the real work begins. You need to grind the little pieces of cocoa beans with the mortar and pestle, then on the grinding stone with the roller. That part is hard. But Grandpa loves working that roller up and down until the beans churn into drippy, slippy goo. He says doing that job might be harder than working in a mine. Then you add sugar and the rest of the spices in just the right amounts and grind it all over again until everything is mixed up and smooth. From there, Hannah takes over. She's decided that good colonial-era chocolate deserves to meet the world in a good colonial-era way. Back then, people didn't eat chocolate the way we do. Kids didn't eat chocolate bars. There were no candy shops like ours. where we're always struggling to make the most interesting and yummy treats. People bought chocolates in big hunks from a chocolate maker, and like Grandpa told us, they melted it into drinks. Hannah took our chocolate and poured it into a long rectangular pan. That way, she said, we can cut it off by the inch, like great, however many times Grandma Beatrice. The best part about it all is that not once did Alan Kunkel poke his head into our store, around our yard, or even across the stream. It's amazing how much a kid can relax when he knows he doesn't have a camera staring at him every second. It takes a lot of time to get it right, but by the night before the Chocolate Expo, we're ready. The blocks of chocolate are wrapped in parchment paper. The banner we made is rolled up next to the door. Even though she might not approve, Mom's fancy tablecloth is ready. Only one more detail to work out, Grandpa says as Hannah and I brush our teeth before bed. What's that? I say, toothpaste drool dripping down my wrist. Grandpa whips out those colonial outfits he bought us. Time to gear up in ruffles and white stockings, he says. Hannah laughs so hard toothpaste splatters out of her mouth. No way, I say. Way, Hannah says. If we're going to win the Chocolate Expo, we have to give it everything we've got. Those outfits are perfect. Grandpa levels his eyes at me. Way is all he says.